I'm Chiscool Gaming, and today we're back in Dragonheir Silent Gods to be looking at the very best legendaries in each element, so that you can pick the very best ones and focus your Master Scrolls on those heroes. Now, in case you've missed my other videos in this series about Dragonheir Silent Gods, this is a season-based game, and Season 2 officially launched the fall of the Increscent on December 15th, which introduced a new sandbox, the Aethercarn. There's new strategy where you can now have a chance to conquer the seas. Literally, I was going around in a boat and underwater. And there's new optimization in the experience, including smoother early game, gameplay, and faster growth. With the new season, there's also new elemental affinities, as well as 30 new heroes and damage types, including Burn for Fire, Ice Blast for Ice, and Thunderbolt for Lightning. You'll also run into new and improved dungeon bosses, as well as new equipment and artifacts. With the new season, be ready to spend some dice in the Fourth Faring Summons event with the new Season 2 exclusive summon pool. Now, I gotta give a big thank you to Dragonheir Silent Gods for sponsoring today's video, as well as giving me access to a special test environment so I can showcase to you some of these sweet Season 2 heroes. It's a brand new season, span new game. Now, if you want to download Dragonheir Silent Gods, check the link in the description. It's available on Windows, Mac, Steam, Epic Games Store. It's on iOS and Android. You can pretty much play wherever you go. So let's get started right into the meat of the video. And by the way, use the timestamps in the description to navigate to whichever part of the video you're most interested in. Let's first start with how you can get your legendary heroes if you're newer to the game and why they're just so busted. The only way to get legendary heroes is from your Heliolite dice. And if there are any Heliolite banners, whether it's the regular banner with either the 80 or 100 summon milestone, or the special banners that'll pop up every few weeks, like the Celestial Alternate banner or the Blessed Summons event. Every time you open dice, there's about a 3% chance of pulling a legendary. Of course, it always depends on the event, so you can always check the probabilities for each event you do. But there's also a special pity system, where every 34 dice you open without getting a legendary, you're guaranteed a legendary on your very next pull. Now, if you wanted to try to pull this into US dollars, the largest gem bundle you can buy is about $100, and you get about 22 dice. So it's about 160 worth of Worm Arrow to buy the dice in order to guarantee a legendary in the worst possible luck. Now, as always, I recommend sticking to the regular Heliolite banner because this is the only banner where you have a chance at pulling an exclusive legendary hero. And I'll explain why these are so important throughout the video. Legendary heroes are so damn busted because of how stacked their skills are. Essentially, the more power you can punch into each hero, when you've only got 5 heroes in the lineup, the better off you're going to be. So, as an example, it'll cost you between 7 to 9 Master Scrolls to fully upgrade each legendary in your team. So, if you can pick legendaries that are super powerful, but also super versatile, you can get a lot of value from these choices, which is sort of why we're making this video. Some of the legendary heroes offer so much to the team, whether it's insane damage or unique buffs or debuffs. You open up new possibilities for what your entire squad can go and accomplish or do. Sometimes this even opens up synergy with epic heroes, which is extremely valuable because, like, look, not everyone's going to be running a full legendary lineup. Quite the opposite, in fact. As you start out the game, you do really want to lean on the synergy that you can pull with your epic and also your lower rarity heroes. Now, Season 2 is bringing us 3 new exclusive legendary heroes, and they are very powerful. I've covered them more in depth in a dedicated video about which heroes I think from Season 2 are going to be most powerful. So you can check the card in the end screen if you want to check that out. But if given the opportunity, you would really want to work on those heroes and prioritize getting their exclusive artifact. So with all of that out of the way, what are the absolute best legendary heroes for each elemental affinity. We're going to touch on and recap the best Season 1 legendaries while noting some Season 2 heroes that, like, to be honest, we haven't really seen them fully in action yet, but I've got some strong suspicions about how powerful they're going to be, including the new Ice, Blast, Burn, and Thunderbolt damage types, which again, we covered in our last video. So starting off with Fire, and quite honestly, starting off with the absolute best legendary hero in the game for single target damage, we have Flora. At this point, almost everyone in the game who's played for a decent amount of time has encountered a Flora in their Vortex rankings. She's an absolute monster, and it's quite obvious why she is Fire's exclusive hero. The best part about her is that her best enablers are actually very accessible heroes. And the best heroes to do this are Erich, the free legendary hero you get in the Season 1 storyline, as well as Tonal Non, an epic hero you can get from summons. This is because she wants heroes that are doing as many wild checks as possible, and these two are the best ones for the job. When looking to gear, you really want Enlightenment because she is a derivative damage dealer, but also look for as much attack percent as possible when using the 3-piece Platinum Knight set. Next on the list, we have another beast you might have seen in the Vortex rankings. That's Chrysos. When you bring a tank in your lineup, you're going to be looking to get more than just someone who can soak a bunch of damage, which is exactly where this hero comes in. Not only is he going to give your team a massive shield that also slightly heals your team, but he also provides the attack penalty to debuff, as well as dispelling buffs from the enemy, so he brings so much more utility in just one hero. You can even pair him with the 3 wild heroes mentioned earlier, with the Flora lineup and another spare poison healer, and you can make quite an insane Vortex team already. Now, when gearing him, just look for as much skill haste, defense percent, and hit point percent as possible, but make sure you have enough accuracy that you can apply the attack penalty, most likely with an accuracy chess piece and negative rune. If you think you're already tanky enough, go for the 3-piece 3-ear set. Otherwise, if you want to make him more tanky, go for Ancestral Protection. Now, when it comes to Season 2 Fire heroes related to the new burn damage type, you really don't want to miss out on Karf and Eschitius. Eschitius being the main AoE damage dealer among the team, he is absolutely nuts. I mean, I've used him. His damage is insane. It was very fun. He revolves around the new burn damage type. He needs an enabler, and that's where you pull in your new pirate-themed hero, Karf, who is the best burn enabler you've got. So pair the two together, and they will be super powerful. Now, on to the honorable mentions for Fire. Mainly for PvP, it'd be Jorn, or you could use Gerika. These two are currently in the meta as one of the best comps right now, running really high in Arena. And that is because they do a quick and fast fire comp that you just can't often counter, or can't easily counter. If you care about PvP, these two are super strong. On to the next affinity. Let's go cover Frost. Frost actually has a lot of really powerful units. We'll start out with the most well-known. That's gotta be Hivitar. Hivitar is the Frost exclusive, arguably one of the best AoE heroes in the game, as well as the best PvP DPS hero in the game. So a lot to like there. Build her up to 100% crit rate with just as much attack percent and crit damage as you can muster. She will do some serious work. Whether it's Fae, the story missions, or the Goblin Lair, just make sure you pair her with a Frost applier like Rava or Lysenia so that you can get the most out of her abilities by hitting targets that are under the Frost effect. You can either use the Platinum Knight set for bigger ultimate skill damage, or the Executioner set for higher leveled enemies with high defense. Now, the next hero I want to mention is Oster. Unlike Hivitar, who actually specializes in single target damage but can still do some serious AoE, for Vortex, you actually want to run Oster because of his single target damage. You look for the same stats as Hivitar, but try to aim for the 3-piece Gambler's set, so his auto attack can do some serious work against frosted enemies. I only got him in my lineup recently, but I really wish I had gotten him a few weeks back. It would have made my life so much easier. Now, up next, we do need to talk about Philosia, who's honestly so good in any area of the game, and I really like heroes that are very versatile. Whether it's in PvP or a dungeon you need to survive in, or even Vortex, she will keep your team alive no matter what. She gives damage reduction, defense 2, huge shields, and control immunity. I mean, like, what else do you want here? Stack her up with as much enlightenment as possible, especially positive rune and chest piece, with some tankier stats like defense percent or hit point percent in either of the 3-piece Radiance set or 2-piece Troll, 2-piece 3 years, so she can cast even quicker and your team will live for ages. She's really a good core to any Frost team where you're sort of at threat of having any of your units die quickly. I mean, I was at a point where I didn't even need attack down in some dungeon bosses because instead I just ran Philosia because of the tankiness she gives, and that was super powerful. Now, of course, stepping into Season 2, you've got some new options available to you related to Ice Blast. You need to keep your eye on Beldel and Shinna. Shinna is a part of the new hero kinsfolk, that's merfolk. You're going to see a lot of them in Season 2. She is going to be your primary enabler for ice crystal buffs for your Ice Blast damage heroes. Pair her with Beldel, the new exclusive Ice Blast hero, and your dreams of doing massive single target damage will all come true. Some have even said in early testing that these new Ice Blast heroes can outdamage Flora when it comes to Vortex, but we'll see. Maybe you can test for yourself. Definitely pick these heroes up, and if you want their specific skills, again, check the most recent video I did for information about both of these heroes and the top heroes for Season 2. Card in the end screen, all right? Now, I do want to give an honorable mention to Ella Seabrae because she is probably the best control unit in PvP right now. You put enough skill haste on her to cast before anyone else, and the enemy team will simply not be able to cast until it's too late in the fight. She also really does well in dungeons for stalling the boss's skills, because our ultimate has the skill reduction of 50%. Definitely super strong if you manage to pick her up. Now let's shift gears and talk about Necrosis. We'll kick it off with probably the biggest AoE damage dealer in the element, which is Loannis. I mean, I just look at the passive here in the ultimate, and how insane is this damage stacking? Pair her with a bunch of other summoning units and watch her nuke entire boards worth of enemies. You actually want a 3-piece platinum set for the crazy ultimate skill nuke with similar stats as Hivitar, so around 100% crit rate and stacking as much attack percent and crit damage as you possibly can. This is very good in PvP, also great in dungeons that need AoE like goblins. Up next is Guland, who is extremely versatile, and I really like the heroes that are versatile. You can really put her in any team if you're desperate, sort of in need of a cleanser who can also apply attack penalty 2, just to counter certain dungeon mechanics like poison from the Grave of Rot. She's relatively easy to build. Try to get as much accuracy on her as possible from your chest piece and your negative rune. And remember, your Psychic Core sort of tech tree has accuracy and skill points. So if you've invested in Frost or Necrosis accuracy points, you're already getting 50 accuracy and would only need about 230 or so to cover most activities in the game. Now, with that in mind, you can even try to build her more for damage while using the 3-piece 3 ears to give attack up to your team and trying to optimize stats and crit rate to 100%, then crit damage and attack percent, kind of like how I've built her here. Something to note is that her battle skill actually steals ultimate energy from the enemy she's hitting, which makes stalling certain bosses or even frontliners in PvP very easy. Now, Tauren is my last pick for Necrosis simply because he's such a good healer and support. He gives invisibility to his entire team while healing them, which is always a crucial thing to have in harder levels of dungeons because Frost really doesn't have a good healer, so if you manage to pick him up, he'd be a great fit on a Frost team too. As long as you're in Season 1, where the affinity bonus is Frost and Necrosis, you're in a good spot there. Now, Tauren just wants as much enlightenment as possible while being in a 2-piece Radiance and 2-piece Ancestral Protection set. It's probably the best way to go because he shares his defensive stats with the ally in front of him at the start of the battle. Before we switch affinities, I do want to give a quick honorable mention to Dragonheir. The reason being is that he's a self-healing tank, which also gives a unique debuff called Healing Reversal. So when he applies this debuff, anytime an enemy with the debuff is healed, 50% of that healing is converted into damage instead, up to 100% of Dragonheir's max hit points, which is pretty insane if you encounter a situation where the enemy has no way of debuff immunity and is healing a bunch. For example, Grave of Rot, Heretical Ruins, or against teams in PvP. Now, covering the Radiance element is pretty tough, and all these rally heroes are so busted, it's not even funny. Now, there is one hero, however, that stands out above the rest, and that is Lorenthil. This is because he is the core to every single rally team, because his passive and his ultimate skill are completely cracked. He is the absolute best hero in the game to give out the rally buff, which is super critical to maximize the damage of your rally heroes. And he does that with his passive skill, stating that whenever his ultimate is recharged, he gives rally to his entire team, while also giving a 40% attack up buff when he casts his ultimate. And he recharges his team's ultimate energy by 25% when they cast their ultimates. Like, wow, he is so freaking busted. Best set by far is 3-piece 3 ears because he's all about buffing and enabling his team, but also make sure to prioritize as much skill haste as you can on him to keep his ultimate skill in time with everyone else's. The legendary artifact Rift Hourglass is the absolute best in slot for him. Next up are 2 DPS options, and while both are insane together, most people aren't lucky enough to get both of them, so if you get either of them, they'll do a ton of damage as long as you have the proper rally enablers. Filto is by far the biggest burst damage dealer in the game, having the highest ultimate attack scaling in the game, doing 600% attack nuke 3 times total. So we're talking about 1800% nuke. He also recharges his own ultimate energy. So with Lorenthil, he's going to be casting so quickly and doing so much damage when all these buffs are stacked. 3-piece platinum set, 100% crit rate, as much crit damage as you can get, stack the attack, you know the drill. You're pretty much all in on that massive nuke, so make sure to position your Filto with his 3-lane AoE hitting whatever it needs to, because he won't be able to cast on everything. On the other hand, we've got Thelendor, who is the larger AoE and more sustained damage counterpart of Filto, as well as being Radiance's exclusive hero, unleashing tons of single target moonlight rays at the enemy board. You build him the same way you build Filto, but instead look for 3-piece gamblers, and you should expect some crazy damage. Quick honorable mention, by the way, to Huberg, who's also a good pick if you don't have either of these two. He doesn't really match their damage, but he can still pull his weight. Now, lastly, let's get a quick look at the supports from the Radiance element. Your main picks should be between Asilia, Jillian, or Mithrasia. All 3 have different uses. Jillian is a full-on healer that gives defense up 2. Asilia is a tank healer with debuff immunity and cleanse. Mithrasia is more of a resurrector that can provide immortality with her passive, as well as invisibility to her ranged allies. These 3 can be swapped out depending on the activity, but it just really goes to show how broken the Radiance element is, especially when it comes to supports. Mithrasia and Jillian are pretty similar. Build them with Enlightenment, ideally 3-piece 3 ears, while Asilia should have a bit more defense because she's tanking, obviously, while keeping her Enlightenment stat high for constant big heals. Second to last affinity we've got to get a look at is Lightning, and the first 2 we're going to look at is Nasyenka and Ivelios, who are 2 main damage dealers. Nasyenka is the melee damage carry and also the exclusive hero of Dauntless. And, man, she can do some really crazy stuff in PvP or really good single target damage. In PvP, she's known as a jumper, instantly jumping to the lowest hit point enemy and dealing damage to them. And more than likely, if you can't drop her aggro, they'll be dead pretty soon. So keep an eye out for your squishy carries against her in particular. She also does some pretty impressive damage when it comes to Vortex or any other single target damage, as long as you build her similar to Oster with the 3-piece Gambler, focusing on the same sort of crit rate, damage, and attack. But Ivelios, on the other hand, is the single target DPS king, strictly built to mow down high health enemies and being the main derivative damage dealer of Dauntless. You want to think of him as a lightning equivalent to Flora, but you need other Dauntless heroes to enable his passive. And if you didn't know, these are your auto attackers in Dragonheir, and have a chance for Ivelios to follow up with extra damage. Now, this ability over time does so much work, and since he is a derivative damage dealer, you want to stack him with as much enlightenment and attack percent as possible. Again, very similar to Flora. With that being said, the 3-piece platinum set will work perfectly on him. Now, last but not least for lightning, we have our local lightning rat, Zephy. He is a cracked support, especially in PvP. His ultimate skill gives the entire team defense up 2, as well as invincibility when their health drops below 30%. His passive is super broken if you can make the most use of it, where he will constantly shield an ally whenever an ally or enemy's buff is dispelled, expired, or transferred, which works and ties in with his battle skill, summoning a totem that dispels buffs from enemies in a 3x3 area. Zephy is definitely not someone you want to mess with in PvP and can work really well as a shielding utility support, especially if built correctly, where you want 3-piece 3 ears and as much enlightenment as possible, along with some defensive stats, so this rat survives. Now, there is a new Thunderbolt damage type in Season 2, primarily focusing on who I've lovingly been calling PK, the exclusive Thunderbolt hero. He's absolutely insane when it comes to dealing AoE damage, as long as you build him in a team with a bunch of heroes that are proccing the new debuff called Electrocuted. Just like Burn, he needs to have a buffer or enabler, and your best bet will be Shai Noctan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, I sure hope I am, who will ultimately be a great buffer, giving attack up on Thunderbolt allies, as well as making sure the Electrocuted debuff is being permanently applied to the entire enemy board. Now, last on our list is Poison, but not least, all right? We've got Lothair, Durango, and Ogok as the best poison units by far, but we'll also mention there are 2 other units that work really well in some of these lineups. So let's start with Lothair and Durango, who are insane damage dealing, poison stacking, jumping into the middle of enemies duo. Durango is the best poison stacker in the game. Make sure to build him with 3-piece gamblers because his poison stacking is based on critical hits, and that also means you're going to need 100% crit rate paired with attack percentage. Focus on some accuracy with the chest piece and the negative rune so we can get those poison stacks applied consistently. Remember, you need 220 for most activities, with 280 being the maximum, like tier 4 Vortex, and you can get plus 50 accuracy from your Psychocore Elemental Affinity bonuses with a 5-team bonus. Lothair, on the other hand, is the highest damage dealer in the poison element by far. There's actually a 350 million Vortex run with a fully inspired Lothair and Durango that was done a few days ago, and you can see a screenshot on the screen now of that happening. So build Lothair with as much enlightenment and attack percent as you can with the 3-piece platinum set, because he does more damage the more poison stacks the target has. You can even use him with the epic poison unit Corrin, who refreshes the poison stacks on a target with his ultimate skill. Now, if you get your Rift Hourglass as well, you put that 80 skill haste on a Corrin, he can keep the 40 stacks indefinitely, making Lothair do so much damage. Now, setting those 2 aside for a moment, Ogok is by far the best support, or one of the best supports in the game. He's used in the highest damage Flora Vortex comp due to the Fire and Poison affinity in the season, and he is busted. He does so much healing because of his passive. Anytime he heals a hero, he also dispels a debuff from them, perfect for Vortex or any activity that has debuffs you need to worry about. He also grants immunity from his ultimate in case any of your team are close to dying, while also giving them a huge delayed heal when the immortality runs out to bring them back up and running. 2 honorable mentions for Poison would be Twitch and Urgander. Twitch works similar to Durango, where he's a great poison stacker with enough accuracy and enlightenment. He's a great combination of both damage and poison stacking, where Urgander is quite honestly an underrated tank. He has immortality, self-healing, and pretty much constant uptime of attack penalty, where every time he's hit, he has a 50% chance to apply attack penalty to the attacker with no cooldown. And there you have it. I'm going to lose my voice, but gosh bless, we've covered every single element and the best heroes in each element, including some new additions from Season 2 that I think are really powerful. So now I hope this guide will have steered you in the direction of perhaps which elements or heroes you build around, which stats to focus on. That way you're not wasting your precious Master Scrolls. So if you found this video helpful, do me the honor of throwing a like on here and consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you again to Dragonheir Silent Gods for sponsoring today's video. Definitely check the link in the description to download the game. If you haven't already downloaded it, it's available on many of the devices you're using, whether you're out and about and play on a mobile device, that's iOS or Android, or play on a PC. You've got Steam, Epic Games, or Mac, where you can go download this thing. I use a combination of these devices, so if you're already playing on mobile, consider playing on PC or vice versa. It's nice to be able to play the game pretty much anywhere you go. Now, if you are looking for more information about Season 2 heroes specifically, definitely check the card in the end screen. And brand new season, span new game.